When someone is traumatized by the hands of someone else, it's easy for us to assume that they would hate that person and not want to be around them and do everything they can to never see them again. But then, why do so many of us feel connected, often protective, and sometimes even fall in love with those who abused or harmed us? This very common response is what is known as a trauma bond. And that is what we are going to dig into today as I talk about the 5 most common reasons we can develop a trauma bond. So let's start with the first reason and explain a bit about what trauma bonds are. These bonds are emotional connections or attachments that we make to our abusers as a way to protect ourselves from further harm. In many ways, it's similar to Stockholm syndrome, which, if you're not familiar, is an emotional bond that we make with our captors while we're in captivity. And they coined this term way back in 1973 when 4 people were taken hostage during a bank robbery in, you guessed it, Stockholm, Sweden. Now, even after they were rescued, the victims refused to testify against their captors, saying that they felt bad for them, and some even defending what the robbers did. Trauma bonds and Stockholm syndrome are not recognized in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, otherwise known as the DSM, but there are some similar diagnoses within the International Classification of Diseases, or what's known as the ICD-11. And as we all know, these diagnostic manuals aren't updated often and are usually lacking in full symptom understanding. And I would honestly put both of these issues under what is already known as the PTSD diagnosis, since I think both are born out of trauma. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think? I know you may be wondering why I'm comparing trauma bonds to Stockholm syndrome when we aren't always being physically held captive in abusive relationships. But it's not just the physical captivity that can affect us. We can feel emotionally imprisoned, and that is just as powerful. Maybe our abuser has told us that no one else will love us like they do, or that if we leave, they will tell everyone what a terrible person we are. And if we're younger, we may not know what a healthy relationship looks like, or fear that those who hurt us will go on to harm the people that we love. These bonds are extremely common when we are harmed by one of our caregivers, someone like our mother, father, or anyone else close to us who's supposed to care for us. When we're young, we're supposed to be able to turn to these people for love and support when we're hurt. But when they're the ones that are hurting us, it can be confusing, make us question whether what is happening is in fact hurtful or abuse or not. And we can struggle to turn away from them. And if you want more information, I talk in depth about trauma and how it can affect us in my new book, Traumatized, that's available now, and you can click the link in the description to grab yours. There can be many reasons we feel stuck with them and unable to leave. So make sure you stick around for all 5 reasons because the last 2 might surprise you. Now with that, let's move into the second reason. When it comes to domestic violence, we can often get caught in the cycle of violence. This means that after our loved one has harmed us, they immediately go into what is called the honeymoon or reconciliation phase, where they apologize for hurting us. They can say that they didn't mean to and promise to never do it again. They may even buy us gifts or take us somewhere nice and give us all their attention. This phase is kind of like gaslighting, and we can think that we're making the abuse out to be more than it is, or even feel bad for our abuser because they feel so bad about it. After that phase, it quickly moves into calm, and then into tension building, which is usually the longest phase. And then we go right back into crisis when the abuse takes place. And this ever-changing landscape of our relationship never allows us to feel like we're on solid ground and really safe. And it's hard to read the other person or know when or if they're going to blow up again. And if they're isolating us from anyone who could support or show us love, we can think that they're all we have. Which rolls into reason 3 and our fawn response, because that can play a big role in trauma bonding. And if you missed my video about this, our fawn response is part of our stress response, otherwise known as fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Now, fawning isn't talked about as often because it relates almost exclusively to trauma. Now, more specifically, it relates to complex trauma, or what we call CPTSD. Children need safe, loving, and supportive environments in order to develop a healthy sense of self and emotional intelligence. When we grow up in an abusive or emotionally neglectful and controlling environment, we can cut ourselves off from how we feel because it's too painful. And expressing that upset only seems to get us into more trouble and causes us more harm. Therefore, some children push their own wants and needs down in order to prioritize their abuser's emotional state as a way to, you guessed it, prevent future abuse. Now, this focus on pleasing others at the cost of our own well-being is what is known as our fawn response. We fawn over others in our life as a way to try and control their behavior. We can believe that if we do everything just right, say the right things, and make them happy, then they won't hurt us anymore. This means that in order to read their every thought and mood shift, or at least think that we have to be incredibly connected to them. Even if they aren't connected to us, we can spend all of our time thinking about them and doing everything we can to please them. This, in and of itself, is a trauma bond. The fourth reason we can emotionally connect and even fall in love with our abuser is because we feel special and important because they picked us out of everybody else. I have heard from so many of my patients and other members of our community that they felt like they must have had something that the others didn't, like they were the special child in the family and that's why their father chose to spend all this extra time with them. Or that out of all the kids in the class, this teacher chose us to be with, which I know we may think can be a bad thing, but if we're told that what's happening is good, or maybe we aren't getting enough support and attention at home, we can feel special for being the one and only chosen one. We often don't know that what's happening is abusive. We can see it as time spent with someone and getting attention that we are so desperately craving. I've actually seen this backfire in some cases when other victims will come forward or they'll learn about each other. And we can become very upset. And this belief that the abuse made us special can be shattered. And we can become angry or fall into a shame spiral. And sometimes it can even help to break that trauma bond, but not always. The fifth and final way that we can develop a trauma bond is because of the confusion that can come out of sexual abuse. It has a really big effect on our trauma bonds because when we're sexualized from a young age and possibly told that those acts are something that they're doing to us because they love us and care about us, then we can think that that is what love is. And if no one else in our life is showing us that much attention and so-called love, we can enjoy it. We can find ourselves seeking it out and think that what we feel for them is in fact love. And because our body is wired to enjoy sexual acts, it can sometimes feel good and we can find ourselves liking it, which I know can lead to a lot of shame, embarrassment, and even disgust. Again, this can be so confusing for us and make us question if what happened was actually abuse or not. And we can believe our abuser when they tell us that they love us. With all of these mixed messages, it can be hard for us to see that real healthy love doesn't look or feel like that. When it comes to trauma bonds like this so-called love is instantaneous and expressed immediately, whereas healthy love develops over time as we grow in our relationship with each other. Abusive relationships are confusing. They can cause us to question our memory of events and lead us to emotionally connect with those causing the harm. Unfortunately, trauma bonding is very common, but it can be worked through in therapy. As we come to recognize that what we went through was in fact abuse, we can slowly untangle ourselves from their grip. And even if we don't hate them or wish ill on them, we can see that what they did wasn't okay and that we deserve better. So please, if this is something that you're struggling with, reach out, speak up, and find a trauma specialist in your area. Because with the right help, it can and will get better. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. If you think I left anything out or would like to share your own thoughts on this topic, please leave those in the comments down below. And if you want to watch more videos about trauma, you can check out my playlist on the screen, and I will see you next time. Bye.